365 Sports.
Is there a trade that could quote-unquote reopen the Chiefs' Super Bowl window? Well, the Athletic seems to think there is a reopening that needs to be had and that they have a trade that can do just that. We talk about this absolutely wild trade they suggest, plus a brand new Chiefs mock draft from Chiefs Wire, and talking about all the latest prospects that the Chiefs could go out with their pick number 9 in round 1, and of course, a multitude of other picks behind that. Welcome into the Chiefs Report, a part of 365 Sports. I'm Jace Andrews, and we appreciate you tuning in to today's show. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I want to remind you, if you're on YouTube, to hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free to do so. And man, we're on the road to now 300 subscribers. Would love to hit that in the near future. And if you could be a part of that journey, I really appreciate it. And again, hit that follow button on Apple Music or Spotify if you're listening on there. Let's go to this wild Chiefs trade. So I'll kind of show you the article just preliminary, and we'll go from there. So Chiefs news here for January 9th. A bold trade could reopen the Chiefs Super Bowl window, which, first of all, I don't know if the Chiefs Super Bowl window needs to be reopened. I think it just took a little bit of a speed bump this year more than anything else. But let's kind of go through this article. And it was posted by The Athletic talking about how the Chiefs, Ravens, and Bengals could reopen their Super Bowl windows, which each of the three teams are in different situations. The Ravens nearly made the playoffs. The Bengals were without Joe Burrow once again for the entire season, and honestly, they need to just trade him away. And then the Chiefs obviously had injuries and one-score games that they just couldn't win. But either way, what are they trying to say here? Here is kind of an interesting one. And the article says this. It's why Veach might have to seriously consider a transaction nearing as bold as the one he made with Tyreek Hill. This could mean trading Trent McDuffie. Now, I love Trent McDuffie. The Chiefs have done a fantastic job at scouting cornerbacks and acquiring them in their drafts and getting them to the deals they would want. But the logic I kind of understand. And here's the point behind it. McDuffie is 25. He remains in his prime, and everything that he has is something that a team would want, both off the field, on the field. McDuffie is a guy that is very well renowned among NFL organizations. The Chiefs already exercised his fifth-year rookie option at $13 million. And this is where it would make sense if this is not the plan. If they don't plan to give him a long-term extension now, though it would make sense to move him to another team. And I somewhat get it. But what other team could they move him to? What would make the most sense? Well, they suggest the Jets, because the Jets, one, just traded away Sauce Gardner, acquired a first-round pick, and while maybe the Jets won't consider Trent McDuffie Sauce Gardner level, it technically would get them, I think, something in the range of a first or second round pick, more than likely a first round pick. Though probably the latter of the two, the Indianapolis Colts one rather than the Jets, of course. But I am intrigued by this trade and also insulted by this trade in a way. I mean, I love Trent McDuffie and I want him to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do believe that he is going to be an Pro Bowl level corner for the next probably 7+ years from now until 32, 33 in his age and career. But at the same time, I can't sit here and say that, okay, depending on what the Chiefs feel in their next upcoming draft capital, they could go out there and draft some good cornerbacks. Also, what could be an option? What could they get back for him? And then the third level, and probably the biggest one, are they going to be able to extend him to a long-term deal? Are they going to consider that? Is that something that they are going to actually take into account and put on their radars? Because if they're not considering keeping him back, if they know that they are going to have to not extend him or that he is not going to come back, and that is a for sure thing, then trading him is not a bad idea. And it's a thought to be had that the deal would have to be right. The things you would have to get back would have to be the right amount. And again, it would have to be based on the fact that you believe you are not going to get him. But it is an interesting trade nonetheless. And it's something that I do think Chiefs fans and Chiefs representatives should consider for a lot of different reasons. But with that being said, I am curious to see if Brett Veach does make any trades before the NFL draft. And with that, if he could acquire some more draft assets, whether it be second round, first round picks. I mean, we know that the Chiefs and their cap space situation is not in the greatest. one thing trading Trent McDuffie would do is help out with that. Especially if you brought in picks, because then you're bringing in a lot less salary in theory than what you would be bringing in versus the Trent McDuffie $13 million contract. There's ways that works out, and it's a positive manner, but I am kind of curious. That being said, I do want to go with a new mock draft here and try and go through each picks, and you can see on your screen, already got pick 1 up there. We've talked about this guy, so not going to spend a too large amount of time on it, but it's wide receiver Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Now, Tate is a guy who is very good at all 3 levels of the field. He can go with the short term, the dump off. He can go medium with the route. He can also go deep. And with his frame, his ability to get up and get those 50-50 balls are in a very good spot. 6'3", 195. A lot of his highlights are the 50-50 balls. Kind of a Des Bryant type receiver. And in a lot of different facets, he's somebody the Chiefs like. And we've talked about this multiple different times. He's improved upon himself each year, from his freshman year to his sophomore year to now his junior year with Ohio State, having 875 yards and 17.2 in the average yards per catch with 9 touchdowns. Now, lots of things can be discovered with Carnell Tate, and lots of things can be added to his game. And I think that's something the Chiefs like about it, is they want to have people that they draft that they feel as though they can build up and make even better. And that's exactly what Carnell Tate is. He has the intangibles. He's going to go up. He's going to get 50-50 balls. Again, he can win those routes, whether it's medium, short, long, doesn't matter. But the biggest thing to me is the fact that the Chiefs right now only have 3 receivers on their 2026 NFL roster. And those 3 receivers, obviously, you look at Xavier Worthy and you like Rashee Rice, but then it's Jalen Royals, a 4th-round pick from last year that didn't see the field all that often, in fact, really at all this past season. And so the question marks are with him. But there's no question marks with Carnell Tate. You know what you're going to get. You know the fantastic ability that he possesses. And for all the people that have been in the comments talking about we're not going to get Jeremiah Love with that 1st-round pick, maybe you're right. And in that case, would you want to go wide receiver? Is Carnell Tate an option you'd be happy with? Or I want to know, for all the people saying that Jeremiah Love is not the answer in round 1, are you going to look to offensive line? Is that something you really feel is necessary? I think it definitely is a very good option, and I think that is something that the Chiefs have to highly consider. But also at the same time, I think they have some interesting decisions to make on the offensive line with Josh Simmons and having very good guards with Trey Smith. Obviously, Creed Humphrey is in there with the center position. It's just about how you feel about Jawan Taylor and the fact that he's probably going to be cut this offseason. And Wanya Morris, what do you kind of feel with that? Or sorry, not Wanya Morris, but either way you slice it, I feel like this offensive line could be in a very good spot even without drafting one, and that's something that I think can be debated upon. But if you are speaking the truth and saying that Jeremiah Love is not the guy that you want, or you don't want a skill position, is it offensive tackle that you want? That, if so, is he at number 9? Who is it that you'd want to get at number 9 in that offensive tackle room? I'd kind of be very curious for you to let me know what your thought was. Now, in terms of what Chiefs Wire said about Carnell Tate, they said that Chiefs would have no time finding an exciting playmaker to help Patrick Mahomes. Tate will be one of the first pass catchers off the board and could be exactly the kind of dynamic route runner that Kansas City needs to reinvent their air attack, which reinventing their air attack is something that I don't think needs to be a statement / doesn't need to be something that is, yeah, we have to do that. But I do think in a lot of assets, we need to understand the wide receivers a little better. I like the way we're planning them out, but there's a reason we fired the wide receivers coach and not the offensive coordinator. I think the way we're working with our offense and the routes we're running is not a bad idea. It's more or less how we're running those routes, who we're telling to run specific routes, and kind of labeling on those wide receivers is something that I would look at more than just the reinventing of the entirety of it. The 2nd-round pick is going to be a running back, though, and it's not a guy we've mentioned here on the channel before. It's running back Emmett Johnson, the Nebraska Cornhusker, a guy who has had a very intriguing career in college. All 3 years with the Cornhuskers. You can see his stats here on your screen. 1,400 yards this past year with the Cornhuskers, totaling over 2,400 in his career. Averages about 5.4 yards per carry. Had 5.8 yards per carry this season. And the big news, 12 touchdowns this season. That, of course, is the most, as he had only 15 throughout his entire collegiate career. 251 carries. He had a long of 70. And at 5'11", 200 pounds, he fits the vibe of what the Chiefs like in their running backs, the size, the stature, the ability to do certain things. And Emmett Johnson, of course, being in Nebraska, not too far off. He is born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, though, so no connection with that. But Emmett Johnson is a very good and a kind of useful back for a couple of different reasons. One, I think he's 100% going to be there at 40. I think it's also a very good time to draft a guy like Emmett Johnson. The second, to me, is the fact that he's not going to be maybe thought of as this premier top level back, when if you compare him and to other the top level backs, maybe he's not facing the same competition that Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price or some of the other top backs are. But I think in a lot of ways, he is one of the top guys with stats and with touchdowns he's been able to possess. And 12 isn't a crazy amount in college. I mean, talk about the touchdowns Jeremiah Love has had in the past 2 seasons, but again, we're not trying to compare here. In the second round, you get a running back who was, first of all, fit for your offense, and second of all, has very good collegiate stats where, again, he got better each year. Now, you would have liked to seen his sophomore season be a little better, 117 carries, 598 yards, and just 1 touchdown. But again, that was also due to his ability in terms of how many carries he got. Only 117 in his sophomore season, where here in his junior year, he got over 250. And that's why he got to that 1,400 yards, but averages 5.1 in 2024, 5.8 here in 2025. So just a little bit of a difference, not too crazy of like moving that around. I think all in all, he's a perfect fit for the Chiefs offense. And as far as what Chiefs Wire said about this pick, they said that Johnson would immediately be able to take over as the Chiefs leading rusher and bring some juice to the round game that Kansas City has sorely missed in the past few seasons. And that's something to be really taken into account. We all sit here and we love Isaiah Pacheco, and the fact that he came out of Rutgers, was a 6th-round pick, and performed the way he did for the first 2 years of his career was fantastic. But the past 2 seasons, not only has it been injury-ridden, but he hasn't looked good when he's been healthy. And with all that, you haven't had the top-tier rusher you want. You haven't had the right rusher in your situation and in your kind of light. So if you get the right rusher, what could that mean for this offense? How could you restructure it? / if you do lose Matt Nagy or fire him or whatever happens, you get Cliff Kingsbury, there's a lot more ways to kind of reinvent your entire offense rather than saying reinvent the wide receiver group. I think if you're going to go with anything, just do the whole thing over again and try and allow the run game to help the passing game. Because last year it was very obvious. They were saying, okay, beat us on the ground. I don't care. You're not beating us to the air, basically. It was like, if you want to run, fine. You'll get 3 yards carry maybe, but we're going to stop you. And then to the air, you're not going to do as much as you want to do. And Patrick obviously did his thing, was able to extend plays and make the game go a little better for the Chiefs than maybe what it could have been had it not been for him. But Emmett Johnson does open up a lot of different possibilities. It allows for the Chiefs to have a different sort of mantra to their game, to their offensive game, to their running game. And in my mind, it really does completely change the feeling around this team. But again, it also does depend on what they can do in free agency. And we've done a lot of draft videos on this channel because they do have the top 10 pick, but we can talk free agency stuff. And I think that's an interesting topic to discuss here on the pod. But at the same time, I also want to believe that we're not going to have, or I don't want to believe, but I believe it's happening. We're not going to have a lot of money to spend in free agency. And so until I know what the money is, we can only make hypotheticals as to what they can sign / who they can sign. Because, I mean, let's be honest, even if they save $50 million or whatever it might be, okay, you got enough money to buy a running back, maybe, and just one player. And so I like to look at the draft a little bit more. I also find it a little bit more intriguing. But let's go to the 3rd round pick here real quick. Defensive tackle Dominique Orange out of Iowa State. Now, he has an interesting career. 6'4", 325, his hometown, Kansas City, Missouri. So fits right in. Here's some of his awards. He was an all Big 12 third team in this year, 2025. All Big 12 first team and 4th team All-American and Phil Steele here in 2025. Honorable mention, all Big 12 defensive line for the coaches poll in 2023 and 2024. He won Player of the Week this season in September 9th. Academic all Big 12, and he was on the Big 12 Commissioners Honor Roll. As for this past season, he had 12 games, started in 11 of them, and he was really available. 40 defensive snaps as a junior, played 40 defensive snaps in 9 games. And then this year had a season high 62 snaps against TCU. So really become a lot more available. Nothing crazy in terms of his statistics, 18 tackles, including a half for a loss, so only a half tackle for a loss. He did have 4 quarterback hurries and a pass breakup. Never got any of the sacks that you want. So I think that is something that is a little interesting. He did get invited to the Senior Bowl, so we'll get a little bit more kind of look at him when that comes around. I think there is a lot of stuff that we would like about him. Obviously, the 6'4", 325 frame is nice, but is defensive tackle going to be something that we're worried about? I think there's a couple different ways that you can kind of look at him and look at the kind of structure of this defensive line. Edge rushers are important, but it really comes down to what the Chiefs feel is the most necessary thing. But to me here in the 3rd round, given you've selected a wide receiver and a running back, I would probably go offensive tackle or offensive line, offensive guard, whatever it might be, rather than going to the defensive line, just because I feel like we're in a little better spot defensive line wise rather than maybe offensive line. But that's just my thought. Again, that could be totally off put, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section. All right, that's your round 3 pick number 74, Dominique Orange. We've still got 4 picks to go, but we're going to take a quick break while we get this word in for you for DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, makes every playoff moment feel bigger. DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If the player in your eligible NFL prop bet goes down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code 365Chiefs. That's code 365CHIEFS to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, cdkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Again, use that code 365Chiefs for your bonus bets. Good time to use it. College football playoff tonight. Already got one team in the championship with the Miami Hurricanes. Feeling like the early 2000s, late 1990s right now. And then, of course, you got Indiana facing off against Oregon tonight. Very highly touted matchup. Got picks number 1 and picks number 2 in there with Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza. So go check that out again on DraftKings. You also, of course, have the NFL playoffs coming up this weekend. And we all know that's going to be a very good time to use those bonus bets. Let's go on, though, in this mock draft as we continue on to pick number 4. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball once again. Defensive back Hezekiah Masses. Now, he is a guy out of California and kind of an interesting selection by the Chiefs wire, but I do like it. He actually played with Florida International University for his first 3 years in college. Played well enough there, got some time in Cal. And as you get down to the round 4 picks, it is going to be a little bit more intriguing names / positions, but has 152 total tackles in his collegiate career through 4 seasons, dating back to 2022. 24 passes deflections, 12 of those coming in this most recent year. And he had 5 interceptions this season with the Cal Golden Bears. His game is interesting to me because a lot of people like to kind of look at cornerbacks and label them as ball hawks or straight defenders. Like a lot of people don't realize how good Trent McDuffie is because he's not a guy who ball hawks. He's a guy who makes sure that your receiver, your top guy, not going to catch anything. Christian Gonzalez, same way. Not a guy that's going to get a lot of interceptions, but is going to be there to defend it. But meanwhile, you look at the Cowboys and Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland, obviously Trevon on the Packers now, which is a weird thing to talk about. But either way, those guys are labeled as ball hawks. Whereas Hezekiah Masses here, I don't really know what to label him because he has some plays where he looks like that ball hawking corner, head turned around, looking at the quarterback. He's got his hand, on the body of the receiver, knowing where he is the entire time, and kind of that, sixth sense that some cornerbacks have, like they can turn, look around while knowing where that guy is at all times. Kind of has that at some points, and then sometimes he'll be out there and it's more of a, I'm going to make sure you're not going to get any catches, and it really depends on what wide receiver he is facing. Better wide receivers, obviously, he's going to do a lot more of, I'm just going to be on you. So I think it is an intriguing skill factor to discuss, and that's probably why he's going to drop down to the 4th round, because sometimes in some games he looked fantastic and he gets the interceptions and you're like, okay, this is great. But then in other games, he's like, okay, that was not great at all. And you're thinking, what in the world? And to kind of that extent, his interceptions this year came against Oregon State, Texas Southern, Minnesota, Boston College, and then against number 15 overall, Louisville, when it's the game that the California Golden Bears won in overtime. So he is an interesting factor in a lot of this. Had some good games this season. Had just one pass defended against the SMU team. Kind of an interesting one. The game they won that knocked SMU out of they were the college football playoff in a lot of ways, but more importantly, off their conference championship stuff. So just kind of a weird situation with Hezekiah Masses where you can see the talent, you can see what is potentially there, but at the same time, you don't know what or how that's going to translate properly to the NFL. Can he be in a situation where that does work, where he can be a ball hawk at sometimes and, play more of that stable defense as we've seen with other guys. So interesting thing all around, but I will be intrigued to see what ends up happening with them. Obviously, the Chiefs do have Noah Williams, and he was out of California last year. Masses here in the 4th round. Golden Bear ball hawk is what Chiefs Wire is kind of talking about, which, again, I agree to an extent. He is a ball hawk, but he also has some interesting kind of back and forth with being a true corner and a ball hawk. All right, let's go to the 5th round pick. We got 2 in the 5th round, and one of them is going to be a quarterback, and it's going to be Drew Aller out of Penn State. Now, Aller, of course, injured this season, which is why his stats are not going to be the same this year as they were in prior years. Not to mention Penn State had a really downfall season this year. But in the years that we look at the best seasons of him, specifically 2024, he had a 66.5 completion percentage, averaging 8.4 yards per completion, 24 touchdowns, had 8 interceptions in 2024 as compared to 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 2023, but a lot more passing yards, 3,327 in 2024, whereas just over 2,600 in 2023. Passer rating, 153.5 in his best year, 2024. The question is the injury. What's it going to look like after that? And that's why he's going to drop down here late. I don't think he was going to be selected too much higher than this anyway. But with the Chiefs having, I think, a new idea on their backup quarterback situation, it's going to be a nice thing to see the Chiefs actually maybe sign somebody more, I don't want to say this, but more competent, or draft somebody here in the background that they can try and build and develop. Because for the longest time, we know the Chiefs mantra. It's Patrick Mahomes is our quarterback, and if he gets hurt, season's over. It doesn't, who cares? Like it's done. And I think now with his ACL tear and the ability to maybe come back from that being questioned some turn, it's you got to start planning more about that. And that's exactly what Chiefs Wire says here, saying, quote, given that Chiefs ended the season with their 3rd string quarterback under center, it seems logical that Kansas City might decide to invest a pick at the position this year. Aller was once considered one of the most exciting quarterback prospects in college football and would join the Chiefs in round 5 to become Patrick Mahomes' long-term understudy, which is all well and good. But again, for Drew Aller, there is a lot of positives with him, and I think he could potentially grow into something that the Chiefs would really, really like to have. Okay, moving along, round 5, pick number 176 here. We're going to go in the tight end room. John Michael Gillenborg out of Wyoming, a Cowboy here. Played all 4 seasons with the Wyoming Cowboys. Had 24 catches this year for 217 yards. Best season, though, was 2024, where he had 30 receptions for 425 yards. He finished the entire of his collegiate career, 80 receptions with over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, averaging 12.8 yards per reception, and an 89-yard catch in 2023. Tight ends are going to be an interesting situation next year if Travis Kelce does end up moving on from football. John Michael Gillenborg is not a guy that I see can be a long-term fit, 6'5", 200. He is from Kansas, so that is, again, another tie to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'll be intrigued to see what the plan is if they did go this way. And kind of what we're talking about here, we go to Chiefs Wire and what they said. After addressing wide receiver and running back early, Kansas City targets Gillenborg to round out its selections of offensive skill positions. So, again, I think in this case scenario, you probably have another fit at your tight end, whether you trust in Jared Wiley or Noah Gray, or if you have Travis Kelce back, or the other option, you go out and sign somebody. There are many options for the Chiefs. And then the final pick of the draft here, round 7, pick 223, and they're going to go with a defensive end, Jamond Tapp. Jamond out of Southern Miss. He did play 2 seasons with the University of Texas Longhorns and never really got much going there, so he decided to transfer to the University of Southern Mississippi. Ended up with 70 total tackles this season and 7.5 sacks. 6'3", 275, obviously was a top prospect to end with the Texas Longhorns, but just could never reach that level. And when you get down to lower picks, it's kind of these guys that get drafted. It's colleges that maybe you're not really too familiar with, or guys that you're not too familiar with. And yet they were in the top tier colleges, an SEC, top 10, top 20 programs for their first 2 seasons, and decided that, hey, I'm not going to get playing time here. I got to go somewhere else. They go get playing time at a lower college. They ball out because, well, they got the playing time, and it's not as competitive and, well, not as hard to get up there as it would be at the University of Texas, Austin. So that is the mock draft there. Just to go through this once again, round 1, pick number 9, wide receiver Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Round 2, pick 40, it's running back Emmett Johnson, the Nebraska Cornhusker. Round 3, pick 74, defensive tackle Dominic Orange, the Iowa State Cyclone. Round 4, pick 109, defensive back Hezekiah Masses, the California Golden Bear, joining his other California Golden Bear, Noah Williams. Then we'll have the quarterback out of Penn State, Drew Aller, at round 5, pick 148. Pick number 176, round 5, tight end John Michael Gillenborg out of Wyoming. And then finally, as we mentioned, Jamon Tapp at round 7, pick 223. Very good defensive edge rusher. Defensive lineman, I should say. And I think that he could be an interesting pick, given he has the skill set, but it's more about the coaching and getting him to a right spot. That is all we got for you here today, though. We do appreciate you watching, getting through this mock draft with us. And of course, don't forget, use that code 365Chiefs to get your bonus bets this weekend with the NFL playoffs. Tonight got the college football playoff game. A lot of things to be excited here for football and in sports. But for now, we're going to say peace out, and we'll see you on Monday with all the latest Chiefs news. For now, though, guys, see you later.
365 Sports.